She was there. So good evening, I apologize for being late. Welcome to the August 26th regular board meeting of the Sewer Authority Midcoast. May I have roll call, please?
Director Reddick?
Here.
Director Lohman?
Here.
Director Dye?
Here.
Chair Penrose?
Here.
Director Slater-Carter?
Present.
And Director Blanchard?
Here.
Public comment. Come on, there are a lot of you out there. No public comment.
All lawyers.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody want to discuss anything on the consent agenda? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Regular business. Item 4A.
Yes, we have a presentation, so we will need to use the screen and projector.
With it removed.
Hello.
How are you?
Pretty good.
Take
Sit
the chair,
here?
Kishan? No, this is good.
No,
I switched with you, okay. Wait a minute, I'll bring another chair, Kishan.
Oh, you're-
Here,
it's
take
okay,
this
there's
one.
it.
Got that one?
I have another one.
Sorry,
Lights,
Kishan.
please. Okay, we have Kelsey and Rebecca from Ameresco. We've had some initial discussions with them regarding capital improvement projects as to how we could possibly get funded and do some energy savings for various projects. So this is just a presentation, initial presentation, which I hand it over to Kelsey to go ahead and start.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you for letting us come and speak to you on a very full agenda evening, so we'll try to keep it short and sweet. But just to give you a little background, I've known Kishan for a long time. He and I have worked together in a past life. I'm a recovering public servant myself, but I've joined the dark side of the private sector. So I'm here representing Ameresco. We are a provider of turnkey energy solutions and technology solutions to public agencies. And we've been just having some discussions high level with staff and thought it would be a good idea to come and present to you this evening what the opportunities that we see for SAM related to energy efficiency, capital improvements, deferred maintenance needs, and then how we can deliver that in a budget neutral approach for SAM. So I'll give you just a brief interview of us. So this is the kind of the gamut of services that we provide to our public sector clients, energy efficiency, renewable energy, infrastructure. But again, the key here is that we do this in a manner that is essentially budget neutral to the agency. And the way we do that is by combining, similar to on-bill financing, which I know that the SAM is taking advantage of with PG&E, we leverage energy and operational savings along with capital budget that you've already allocated, grants and utility incentives to offer a budget neutral solution to get more project done for your limited capital dollar. So where do we do this? This is just a snapshot of some of the clients that we've worked with in the public sector. You'll see a couple utilities up there: San Antonio Water System, Dallas Water Utilities, Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility. That's a large facility in the Reno area. We partnered with them to do some really innovative wastewater treatment work and capturing some of their biosolids that we reuse. So, and we, one I'd like to point out just as a recent example is National City. That's actually a client of ours down in San Diego area. And they were able to leverage our budget neutral approach by taking their capital improvement dollars that they already had, where they knew they had bigger needs than they had capital to allocate towards those needs. So what they did was have us come in, we audited their facilities, we gave them an overview of what was possible, what energy savings were available to leverage with those capital funds, and gave them all a program approach where they didn't have to spend more money and they were able to get more work done, about $7 million worth of actual work for about $1 million worth of actual capital costs. So this is where, again, I just, we spent some time with your staff. We actually did a very brief site visit and took a look at some of your facilities. And these are obviously the challenges that you know you have. There's deferred maintenance, which equals risk, right, in an operating plant. You have limited staff, and they have lots of priority projects that they're working on. Your charge as a public agency is to manage your ratepayer dollars responsibly and effectively, which you all do with your various organizations that you represent. And that means looking for operational efficiencies where it's available, and looking for insulation from what's going on in the utility landscape with PG&E and CCAs, and there's a lot of dynamic parts and pieces moving there, and it's hard to sometimes navigate what that means long-term for your agency. And then obviously environmental stewardship. So we live in a beautiful, beautiful area of the country, and keeping it beautiful and green is always an important priority. So what can SAM do to reduce the impact of their operations from an environmental standpoint as well? So this is you should be familiar with this. This is your 5-year capital improvement plan. A couple measures that we looked at that have an energy efficiency or operational efficiency component to them. It's about $1 million that has been reviewed and approved by this board over the next 5 years. Just to note that $1 million assumes that everything that you've got scheduled for replacement is going to continue to operate until the scheduled time where it needs to be replaced. So, and that's a risk, right? Because most of the equipment that is in service is older, past its useful life, and is needing emergency repairs from time to time. And it doesn't address some of the renewable energy goals that we've looked at with energy efficiency, as well as solar, capturing biogas on site. There's an opportunity for that. So that requires additional capital if you want to do those things. And that's, again, there's competing needs out there that we know you have. So what we would like to talk about with you is our turnkey program that provides you with a quick and efficient path that addresses these capital needs quickly and puts them all within a 12 to 18 month time frame as opposed to out 5 years, and also leverages private dollars to enhance your on-site generation and renewable energy goals in a budget neutral manner. So that means no additional capital would need to be allocated beyond what you've already allocated for these projects. And this is what it kind of looks like. So we took a look, again, we did a site walk, we took a look at the utility bills, and we identified approximately $3 million in capital improvements, which includes, as you can see from that photograph, some solar. I'd like to point out in the biggest, I guess, rectangle right next to the clarifier there is your chemical feed area, which had been slated for a cover of some sort to be put over that equipment to make sure that it doesn't degrade any of the piping and cause any unnecessary exposure. So instead of putting up a shade structure, it would be a solar covered shade structure. So you get the additional benefit of some on-site generation there. And again, for $1 million of your budgeted CIP, we would also look at opportunities to expand your on-site generation by capturing the biogas that is generated through the anaerobic digestion process and using that on-site. That's a really attractive measure for a couple reasons. The first being that right now the gas that isn't being reused here is being flared off. And so the flare, as you guys know from your maintenance reports, sometimes has issues and needs to be repaired and on an emergency on-call basis. That's a cost to you. That can be mitigated if you're not flaring as often, if you're capturing that gas and then reusing it on site. And it also mitigates the future cost to replace the boilers, which are a pretty expensive ticket item. So, and then also that includes, in addition to those additional measures, it includes your turnkey engineering, design, project management, construction management, the whole enchilada. So why is that important to you? Well, because we're in a very interesting landscape right now. If you guys have been paying attention, which I'm sure you have as public servants, to what's going on with interest rates, they're at all-time lows right now. So if you're interested in doing a project and financing it this way, this is a really good time to look into that. And also construction costs in the Bay Area it's the most expensive place to build. They've gone up 7% in this last year alone. So what that means to SAM is change orders, right? If you do traditional low bid contracting. So what we would offer you is a design build approach with a firm fixed maximum price for the improvements that we've discussed. that would leverage any private tax dollars through a power purchase agreement with us. That means we would own and construct the solar piece, and Sam would pay a flat rate equal to or less than your current rate with Peninsula Clean Energy. So, and then you get the benefits of the environmental benefits as well as the site improvements like we discussed on the chemical feed area. And then obviously the other, I guess, buying point here is that it does address your critical infrastructure needs. We know that most of the pumps and motors and VFDs that are out there, our drives, are in need of some kind of rehabilitation and replacement. So rather than waiting until something breaks, it allows you to get proactive and fix it, again, without having to allocate any additional capital to do so quickly. And then we also provide optional guaranteed performance of our projects. So if it doesn't work, we could write you a check.
Are you talking about fixed interest rates or variable interest rates? What kind of interest rates are you talking about?
So-
And how long term?
Fixed, and it's tax exempt lease financing is typically what we would do for this type of scenario. And it's fixed over, most of our projects are 15 to 20 years. It depends on the useful life of the equipment that we install. So most of the useful life of the equipment that we'd be looking at for this project is within that 20-year time frame.
And so then, like for the solar equipment, who takes care of the M&R? We do?
We would.
And what about when it's teched out, when it's obsolete?
Right, so our
Which would be in less
in
than
20 to 25 years is typical for most solar right now. Most PPAs that we're seeing are going out. We offer a 25-year power purchase agreement, and that's a differentiator for us in the marketplace. Not everybody's doing that, but we do. And usually the way our agreements are structured is there is a buyout option for the agency should they choose to purchase it and get out of the power purchase agreement. And that's typically after 6 years.
There's multiple points in the contract, 2 to 3 different times, including at the end of the term.
Right.
The IRS has a fair market value provision where you can buy it for a fair market value, or you can look at us and ask us to remove it.
And what's the cost basis for the power? Because I'm pretty sure PG&E is going to be going up. Is your cost basis based on PG&E, or is it based on cost of materials?
PG&E, so the way a power purchase agreement works is we would pay for the construction of and the maintenance of the systems. And you would pay essentially just for the energy that is generated by that system. And we offer a flat rate power purchase agreement where there's no escalation. We offer varying escalators if that's something that you want to do. But essentially what it is, it's a way to hedge your utility spending so that you have some certainty in your budgets as opposed to being kind of subject to the volatility that is in in the public utility space right now. So most of our public sector clients appreciate budgets. I don't know how to phrase certainty. Yeah, they value that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I
No
didn't mean to
problem. No,
interrupt,
I
but-
appreciate the question.
How do you make your money?
We make our money on the construction side. So again, we would do a design build project. All of our costs are baked into the total firm fixed price that you get. We don't do change orders, so that's the risk that we take off of SAM. Change order contracting is a very well-known thing in public agencies. Low bid, that's what happens. They'll lowball you and then turn around and say, well, we didn't know about this, and then you get a change order. So we don't do that because we design and then build and then guarantee the project. So we have control over every stage, I guess, of the process. With your staff too, that's the other important part. It is a collaborative process, so if there's something that they feel needs to be addressed and looked at, it's something that we would look at together and make sure it makes sense.
So one of the advantages to this with the design build is it saves us from getting markups from going out to bid on a whole bunch of projects where the contractor then marks it up because they have to do the,
Well, it's the turnkey delivery model, so it's because we take on the design, the engineering, the procurement of all the equipment, the construction management, all of that is kind of bundled into one entity, one person, one back to pat essentially for SAM. You're not dealing with a bunch of different contractors and subcontractors and consultants and engineering companies. It's really all in one package.
Interesting.
Yeah. Any other questions? I'm almost finished, but I will. So how does this work, right? If this is something that makes sense to Sam and sounds like an interesting way to get some work done that needs to be done, this is what the next steps could potentially look like. I don't know how familiar with, all of you represent various public agencies, so I don't know how many of you have heard of Government Code 4217 before, but it is in the Public Contract Code in the state of California, allowing public agencies to either directly negotiate with an energy services company, which is what Amoresco is, or you can decide to, utilize your procurement processes. Most of the clients that we work with who are public agencies prefer to go out to a request for qualifications. So they'll solicit responses from qualified energy services companies. They'll pick a partner that meets their needs from an expertise and needs standpoint, and then we will go to what we call the investment grade audit phase, which is really where we firm up all the numbers, we do all of our design, we come back to you with a final price and a scope, and then the board would have the option at that point to move to construction, or they could say, you know what, thanks for the information, and then we would charge essentially a fee that is for our cost to put that investment grade audit together. But this is just, this is a best case scenario. So the reason I put such a quick,
pretty steep.
yeah. The reason I put such a quick timeline on there is there are some things moving in favor of speed at the moment. Most I guess applicable would be the investment tax credit for solar is being reduced at the end of this year. So if solar is something that Sam is interested in doing, it's really a good time to look at it because it's being reduced from 30% of the total project cost to 26%. And while 4% seems like a small amount, in our cost structure, it can make a difference in what we're able to provide in a power purchase agreement pricing model. But that's all I have, so hopefully I didn't go over my 15-minute timeline. But I'm here to answer any questions, and then Rebecca Wetstein, who is our Director of Business Development in California, is here as well if you have any questions related to what it is or how it could work for you.
Well, it's very interesting. It seems almost too good to be true. So I kind of like to hear from Keishan and our consultants and what they're thinking on it is, and this may not be the appropriate venue for that. But
Right.
thank you. It was
You're
a
welcome.
wonderful
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you very much. I keep losing your mouse.
Yeah, so the next one is also a presentation by
Okay.
Dan Chai. So, second.
We can talk.
Oh, you want it more?
Okay, well, thank you very much for allowing me to come and meet with you tonight. It's always a pleasure to see your smiling faces. As you know, for the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've been spending time speaking with people and reading a lot of documents and touring facilities. At this point, I've spoken with 20 different people associated with SAM. I have 39 pages of hand-scribbled notes that are very difficult to decipher. I've tried to put some of the key comments on this PowerPoint as we go through it tonight, but the big takeaway, there's 2 big takeaways. The first one is, in speaking with everyone I've spoken to, Sam has difficulties. But there is a desire in everyone I've spoken with to correct those and fix those and improve going forward. And it was amazing that came out in every single conversation. Those of you that have spoken with me know that I didn't necessarily have fixed questions. I really was looking to see what your feelings were, and it was really a powerful presentation of emotion and facts and perceptions and ideas that I think is going to be very beneficial as we move forward. The other thing is, in 1972, the federal government passed the Clean Water Act. Anybody ever heard of that? Yeah.
Few of us.
It's a great piece of legislation that did a lot of really good things, but it had one serious downfall, and that was that it paid 87.5% of the costs of everything that was constructed. Now, most of us like free money, but unfortunately what that did at that time is put in our minds that we could always get free money. We could always get the ability to build things, keep rates low, go forward without having to really invest in our infrastructure. And I think that's part of the reason why Sam's not alone. The deferred maintenance that was just spoken to here, these ladies see it everywhere. The engineering industry sees it everywhere. It's a big part of what's going on. So the desire to keep rates low and not spend money was kind of created by this artificial subsidy that we had back at that time. And it's something that's agency by agency has been faced with for the past several years. Let's see, what have I got here? So, basically as I spoke to people, I broke findings down into 10 general categories. Finances, trust, board, which is the 6 of you, the JPA, which is the document, the SAM manager position, collections, SAM management as a whole, staff here at the facility, the wastewater treatment plant, and recycled water. So,
A hard copy of this presentation is in the packet in front of all
oh
of you.
yes, there is a
So you
hard
don't
copy,
have to
I'm
make
sorry.
notes.
That's okay, yeah.
So,
And there are copies available for the audience?
Yes,
our copy
several
here
copies
for the
available
audience,
for the
and we will post it on the web and send it to interested parties tomorrow as well. Member agency managers. So,
Eventually, Keishan, I'd like to have a clip of this part of the meeting attached to the hard copy, because the summary comments on the hard copy are going to be pretty indecipherable if people just try and read them. They're gonna actually need to listen to the presentation.
okay. These, on this slide, I have 5 pages of typewritten comments where I've compiled ideas out of the 38 pages of hand scribbled. So I tried to just grab some of the key ones to talk about tonight, but I can get you all of the comments as well if you'd like them going forward. So, finances, easily the #1 topic discussed among everyone I talked to, I think. Well, maybe not everyone, but a very large percentage of people. SAM's finances, right now you're trying to get an audit done that's a year behind. You still need to do the current fiscal year's audit. That creates a whole lot of questions. We'll come back to some of that, but there's a real desire to have a better budget process that separates the CIP, the O&M, environmental compliance, administration, collections, all into separate categories, so it's a little easier to decipher and follow. The current format is definitely a little bit difficult to figure out. The need for better internal controls, how we handle the insurance here, there's some concern there that SAM may be insuring non-SAM vehicles. Everything to adequate funding of CIP and O&M, everything needs to be a little better defined and ways of seeing where the money is going and what's being asked for. And this really comes forward in your ability to approve a budget. If you don't know what's really being asked for, how can you approve a budget? And it needs better transparency and a clear definition of how these things are put together. And I think this is all stuff that's being worked on. I know Stacy mentioned a program that you're planning on using next year. It's called Government
Open Gov.
Open Gov. And I've seen it used before. I have not personally used Open Gov myself, but it's a well-known program that people can use, so I think it's a step in the right direction. But you'll see when you see the other comments that there are definitely a lot of other comments in finance. Trust. To me, this is probably the pivot of our whole discussion tonight. Whether it's real or perceived, there is definitely a trust issue at SAM, whether it's between board members to board members, staff to board members, member agencies to staff. It's prevalent. There's very little trust that everybody is on the same page looking to accomplish the same thing. Where honestly, in my discussions, you're really a lot closer to being on the same page and wanting to accomplish the same things than you maybe realize. There's really like I said before, there's a desire that I've just heard from everybody to be able to work together and make this thing work the way it should work. So I think it comes down to that transparency, that communication, being able to take ownership of decisions. If the board again has information, if member agencies have information, if they're part of what's going on in SAM, there's a better ability to develop that trust. So I think it's something that we really need to focus on. Oops, oh my, I can't see the buttons in the dark. All right.
You do it here. Use it here.
Oh, there we go, that'll make it easier. Okay, the board. You're seen as policymakers, not implementers. Need to be, I should put that up there, need to be vision setters. And more than one person brought up sea level rise when I was talking, but you know, it's a good example of something that the board should be doing, telling staff, hey, sea level rise is out there, we know it, what are we doing, what's our plan, where are we going, and put, you know, come back with a plan that you can take action on. I know I've heard here in the meeting last week, I think it was, a desire to 2 weeks ago, to revise the minute format. There's talk about having a retreat somewhere to get a better organizational strategic plan in place. I heard several people tell me there's a strategic plan that was done, but they don't feel like it really addresses the overall SAM umbrella's needs as much as it focused strictly on the internal SAM needs. And I think it takes both of that for a JPA to function the way it should. The JPA itself, this was interesting. I got comments. Joint Powers Agreement is okay and a good document. Joint Powers Agreement is very old and does not address the current needs of the authority. More people said that. All the way to JPA needs judicial review to clarify. Apparently the member authorities agreed to rewrite the JPA, but it stopped once the lawsuit had come on board, so it is not progressing. But I think that very last statement is important for the Midcoastside, for SAM to maintain its independence. That independence is not that it's an agency that needs to run by itself, it's that it needs to serve the Midcoastside community. And that's what the statement, when that was made, I had someone clarify it for me. You know, what do you mean by independence? And they, well, they need to do what's best for the Midcoastside. That's what they're here for. That's what JPA is all about. So I think working on the JPA and getting it more modern, it's another common problem. I think I've explained to many of you that the agency I used to work for, I'd swear that JPA was written by the same person. It wasn't. I know that for a fact. But looking at them, you'd think they were. They're both just, they were written at the time to mostly to get the facilities built. And they did not have the vision to look out 50 years of how things were going to have to operate at that time. So we need to update it to do that. On the SAM manager, general theme was whoever the new SAM manager is, it doesn't need to be a grade 5 operator or an engineer, but it must have the experience and skills to manage the JPA, bring unity, communicate, provide transparency, and interact well with the member agencies and staff. Those skills were things that came out consistently from people that I talked to. Collections, I love this one. Should Sam be in the collections business? I think that's something to evaluate. I see pros and cons to it, but I think it should be evaluated. Current practice of the one-year contracts is absurd. We need to be able to plan the needs, hire staff, amortize equipment over longer periods, 5 years minimum. Deferred maintenance replacement. CWIX, which is the reporting system of the state, some people felt like, the member agency side, felt like they weren't getting verification that these reports were being made the way they need to be made. And also they felt like there's a need for a better monthly reporting system coming from SAM. Again, this is just transparency stuff and stuff that is easy to tell the member agency what's going on. SAM's primary job is to prevent spills. It has gotten better over the past 3 years, and the last manager was able to motivate and train staff to make that happen. There are improvements. One thing I can confirm for you, if you ever have any doubt about the dedication of your staff here, don't doubt them. These people are dedicated, hardworking, committed to this agency and to their jobs and doing what's best for the area. They are as good as anybody I've ever worked with from that standpoint. They are a super good crew. They're running a little thin at times, and their minds are a little bit tired. If we go on to management staff, the O&M supervisor is overworked and always here. That was a statement that came from several people. And there's a belief that it's hard for him to delegate because he doesn't have a succession plan really in place to be able to take his place. One thing that also came out was there's a feeling that all management staff need to be on site at least 40 hours a week. If they're not available, they can't help their people, so they need to be here. And also that the management staff, which would include these 3 here, really need private offices to be able to do the work that they're doing and be able to have private conversations, maybe with confidential issues. Need to develop documents. This is part of the scope that you gave me originally, the need to look at policies, practices, procedures for the entire organization, and we're going to get to what I call PCMP here in a few minutes. And stability. The constant change of approach creates conditions where it's impossible for the organization to reach a point of stable operations. I think that starts at the top, and then you need stability at the board level, and it goes all the way through the organization. Kind of address some of this. It's interesting, of course, O&M levels are perceived by SAM staff to be low, especially if somebody's out. They want to do a great job, try their best. Most are young, need some training. I shouldn't say young as much as new. There's a lot of new faces showing up. Wages and total compensation is definitely an issue that you face in the Bay Area no matter where you are. Succession planning, you got several people that are planning to retire, some as early as the next couple of months and some in the next 10 years. And that loss of institutional knowledge could be catastrophic if you don't find a way to capture it now. Right in the middle, there's significant internal turmoil between some of the SAM management and supervision and staff, some potential major issues that need to be addressed before they become significant. I think those are things that can be addressed by current management. Right now, you only have 2 mechanics at this facility. One is generally at the plant. One is trying to take care of 17 pump stations plus the grinder stations that are at people's houses, which is, I think 3 is a low number, but we need to do a study to verify that. I like this one. This is the only place anybody's name shows up, but I think it needs to be there. Kishin does a lot of projects, but is underfunded and there is no O&M staff to support the projects. So I thought that was an interesting observation. Recruitment is an issue. On-call, I heard from several of your staff that on-call is definitely stressful, and some of them, especially the mechanics, there's only 2 people on call, so basically they're on call 50% of the time, which is pretty difficult for anybody to have a normal life and be on call 50% of their life. And I think we need to really evaluate the organizational chart, not only from a standpoint of your staff, but also what contract services you're using, who is actually performing the work, and how much money you're spending to do that, what is the best structure to meet those needs in the long run. The treatment plant needs a thorough evaluation of updating. We've done a couple of walkthroughs, and I've got some ideas already, but somebody brought up his contract ops an option. In my opinion, contract ops is not a good solution for this organization, but a hybrid of where you operate as a contract operation. You've tried to mimic some of their strengths, but there's also strengths in the municipal world. And private sector does some things really good, and municipal does some things really good, and you can build hybrids. I've done it in many organizations, and it definitely works really well. Something to remember, especially for us private sector side of people, is ROI, return on investment, does not generally drive municipal decisions. We have to provide a service, and sometimes that means the ROI, it takes the second seat. We still want to do it in the best way we can for the most cost-effective manner, but it is not the driving factor in what we have to do. The treatment plant, deferred maintenance honestly is endemic. When you walk around this plant, it needs help. It really, really does. So we need to really look at that. We heard a proposal tonight. I think it's worth investigating and seeing if that makes sense. DPAs have pros and cons, and it just depends on if it's the best thing for this organization. Long term, we may want to investigate the cost benefit of on-site flow equalization, and also look at Half Moon Bay's needs for flow equalization. The storm weather peaks coming to the plant from Half Moon Bay are significant. The storm weather from the north are throttled by the IPS, and there are some flow equalization facilities upstream that may need be something to look at. And a real serious need right now is cleaning the #1 digester. It's 20 years old and has never been cleaned. Typically, you're going to clean those every 7 to 10 years. So I've seen them as long as 12. I don't think I've ever seen one that's gone 20 years. So it can't be working quite as well as it should. Recycled water, just real quick. We got to get the 4 agencies together: the golf course, the CCWD, the city, and SAM, working together to determine how to best use that. The golf course can likely use 100% of your average dry weather flow. The big issue at every recycled water project I've ever been in is, what do you do with the wet weather flow? First of all, you get a lot more of it, and second of all, the golf course is getting rained on, so it doesn't need it either. So you've got to find a way to either store it or another disposal option, and I'm not sure as though that's been addressed at this point. I know there is a 25% design on the table for these facilities, and the golf course is willing to put up some money, so hopefully we can move forward. Someone asked me about scalping plants, which are little small plants placed around the areas. In a lot of places, those are a good idea. I think it's worth taking a look at, but honestly, if you have a golf course that can use 100% of the flow, your most cost-effective method is probably to do it here and send it to the golf course. But that's something we need to validate. So next steps. Big thing is we need a culture change at all levels of SAM, and that will bring the member entities along. If they see change and start seeing the openness and the honesty and the documentation and everything they need to be able to determine that decisions are being made in a logical way, they can then support those. But when they have vague information, it makes it very difficult for them to do that. The one thing I need to point out is it's taken decades to get where we are today. We're not gonna snap our fingers tonight and have it fixed. It's going to take, I think 2 to 5 years. I think we can probably do it in a little over 2, and we'll get into that here in a minute when we start talking about a timeline and costs that are scary. Of course. All 10 issues are intertwined in various ways. You can't just say one is the problem or the other, but they all have issues. However, finance is definitely standing out. It's a big issue to a lot of people. Even the ladies who have left now, I guess, but they're gonna want solid finances before they can throw together a PPA. They're gonna have a hard time doing that with where we are today, I think. So we need to get going. Leadership, the 6 people in front of me, you guys have got such a great opportunity. You really do. There's been decades of problems and issues. It's time to move forward and build it. You can solve this. It's trust, it's working together, it's coming together through open communications, transparency, and compromise, and being able to make things move forward. It's not gonna be easy, but it can happen. In the finance department, we need to get the audits done. That's the bottom line. They really should be done by the end of this calendar year, both of them. It's just not a acceptable practice to not have your audits done. And items identified, and I didn't put this on this, and I should have now that I think about it, but items identified in those audits need to be corrected. And the board needs to be aware of them and keep your thumb on and make sure that they're being corrected and that the work's getting done. A forensic audit was brought up by more than one person. Those are not routine at government agencies and are extremely time consuming. My opinion is less the standard audits have evidence to suggest that there's a need for a forensic audit, it probably is a waste of money. But if those standard audits come out and say, you may have a problem, then I think a forensic audit really makes sense. Everybody know a forensic audit? You get down into the dollars and cents rather than policies and procedures. Okay. We talked about budget, get the different categories broken out so it's easier to follow. Kishan's gonna be talking about timing process that he's developed, and I think it's a really good step heading in the right direction. And as part of that timing, we need an approval schedule, and I know it's defined in your current JPA is when you have to have it, and we still, I don't know if that's adequate for the member agencies. I think that's part of the discussion at the finance committee level that you need to talk about, because there's nothing set. That kind of thing can be changed if you want it changed, so make sure that you're getting the adequate time to go through the process. There's past billing discrepancies at a couple of agencies. We need to get those resolved, and we need to develop the policies and procedures to make sure that this stuff doesn't happen in the future. And a reserve policy, scale check policy, your budget, and there's many more that we need to move forward with. Excuse me. And last slide on finance is the software. The Tyler program that you purchased is a well-known and widely used program that seems to be doing the job. I think it's good to continue moving forward with it. You need to make sure you're getting training and I actually had 2 bullet points up there for training, so I must have thought training was important on this for some reason. And make sure, keep costs and impacts in place. But I think it's also important that we get training not only for SAM staff, that if there's others that you feel like need to be involved, they should be able to access and get the information that they need as well. They may be read-only type access, but it should be available. It's not a difficult thing. And looking at staff assignments and abilities to make the best use of talents, you've got accounts payable, accounts receivable. Those are your 2 big ones, but banking and other things that all tie into this all have to be evaluated. So, if we're going to make this happen, and I actually had a discussion with every one of you as to your commitment level to making this happen, and I got a positive response from everybody that you believe we need to fix our issues. And I'm glad to see that the board is willing to take that leadership role, because I think it's important. It has to start at the top, as I said earlier. If people see the board making efforts to change, they will make the efforts to change and follow along, and we will be able to make those changes. First of all, we got to get the finance in place. Second of all, the trust has to be built. Teamwork is a big part of that. You have to listen, you have to take ownership. And finally, you've got to trust. And it keeps coming back to that word. Have any of you heard of the book, The Speed of Trust?
Yep.
You? Anybody else? Okay, because I've ordered a dozen copies for you. They did not make it here yet. I was hoping to have them tonight, but it is an absolutely fantastic book. It's an easy read, but it is really a good book about how trust and working with people and relationships all come together. And it's worthwhile, and hopefully they will be here. Well, I'll have them for your next meeting for sure.
Okay.
So, bottom line, Sewer Authority Midcoastside can be fixed. No question in my mind that can be done. The board has already taken steps to work that way. The audits should be figured out within 120 days. A new budget process will be implemented this year, and it's going to be a work in progress. I guarantee you it's not going to be perfect this year, but we're going to get a step in the right direction, and we'll keep making it better. Communication is absolutely critical. We've got to provide information to you. We've got to provide information to your staff people. We've got to provide information to SAM staff people, and everybody working in the same direction. SAM has to be the leader in that direction. That's their charge, is to be the focus point of the wastewater treatment systems on the coast side. But that doesn't mean that other people don't have great ideas that they can help with. And as I've mentioned to several of you, a JPA works in a very different way than a lot of other organizations. In the JPA, the member agencies have 3 real functions. The first function is they're the customer, and SAM's duty is to fulfill the customer's needs. And to do that, we've got to know what those customers' needs are, and we have to define them. The second role of the member agency, and to use a private sector term, is the member agencies are the venture capitalists. The money is coming from you guys. There's not a venture capitalist in the world that just blindly gives money to somebody. They get reports, they get information, they get inspections, and they have the way that they can tell that their money is being used wisely. You guys are the venture capitalists, you have the absolute need to have that information, and we need to get it to you in a way that fulfills that need. The third part of the member agency's role is to be a resource. You don't want to be involved in the day-to-day nuts and bolts of operating this facility and this organization, but you do have experiences and knowledge that can benefit this team that's out here, and they need to be a resource. And I don't think that necessarily is happening right now. We're missing that opportunity. So again, it comes back with working together, developing trust, getting programs in place, and making the changes to the culture to be able to make that happen. So, now we're getting into what I like to do. Back in my very early days, I was exposed to a plan that was called a Process Control Management Plan for the operations of a treatment plant. Over my career, I've expanded that concept from just the operating team to the entire organization. Every organization needs a process control. How does this work? And it breaks down into individual departments and into the whole facility as well. Everything working together. So my concept is that we want to have all affected parties involved in the decision-making process. But you gotta respect the chain of command at the same time. It means that people are consulted, they're involved. The operators in how they operate the treatment plant as a role, all the operators are involved in how we determine how to run the plant. If something comes up, you get together and you talk about ideas. And ultimately, Tim, as chain of command, has to make that decision on how he wants to run the plant, but he's heard ideas. Same thing with finance. If something comes up, there's ideas. If it's a general recycling water, we get together with the parties and we discuss it and we get input. So we're using everybody's input. It's a big task to do this because the output of a successful process control management plan is a definition of practices, policies, standard operating procedures, how to implement it, how to get people involved. It takes a champion of that program to make it happen. You can't just say it's going to happen because it doesn't. And it's generally a 2+ year process to get one in place and make it happen. But if we do it here, it's going to change Sam into a leader not only in this industry but in successful government operations. It's something that is being used in many places, but it's a system that takes some effort. So, this is a list of basically the items that you handed to me the last meeting, a month ago, of the things you wanted me to address. Through the process control management plan, we can address the operational effectiveness and efficiency, policies and procedures, organizational structure, staffing levels, compensation, succession planning. One thing I do want to point out is this little bullet here is I am not a compensation specialist, and we would need to hire somebody that does a compensation survey. And I think, Sam, in looking just quickly at salaries, you're in the ballpark on salaries. I'm not sure you're in the ballpark on total compensation. And I think that's something you need to look at, is look at your total compensation. And when I say in the ballpark, that's with other agencies. But as you know, to live around here, it's expensive, and people that are new coming here really have a tough time. It's really, really hard, and young people are having a tough time being able to stay. And our pool of employees is younger people today. I mean, those of us that are baby boomers are peaking out, whether we like it or not. It's the truth, and we're being replaced by people that have to come here or stay here, and they need to be able to afford things. And for that reason, my personal belief, and this is just a belief, is that we're going to see wages are going to have to increase, or people are not going to be able to stay here. They're going to have to go to cheaper areas, and it's going to cause us a real issue in the long run. And the very last bottom is the process control management plan will develop and provide training on the standard procedures to both the board and staff. So it will provide the needed interaction and direction that you identified as something you wanted to know how to make that work better. Other items we still need to do, you need to hire a new manager. You need to find a person that has the traits that you have identified and has the desire to raise Sam to that new standard of excellence through trust and teamwork and communication. Once hired, hopefully I'll be able to work side by side with that new manager to make sure we get this stuff implemented. And succession planning is a big deal. I didn't realize how many people are close to that time when they're going to leave, and Succession planning also has another element that we're really missing here, and that is having a second in command, somebody that you can rely on if you're gone on vacation, so you don't have to live on your phone or on your computer the whole time you're gone. And that really does not exist on the, actually at any level right now. It's a weakness. We also have to work with Sam Engineer, Kishan, and the consultants to provide high level of expertise from the operation and maintenance side of the industry when we're looking at projects and things to do with both the treatment plant and the collection systems and IPS specifically. We have O&M, whoops, excuse me. Excuse me. We have, I think I've been talking too much the last 2 weeks. We have expertise with O&M applications, process improvements, constructability, construction inspection, startup commissioning, training, instrumentation control, odor control. Virtually any aspect of running this facility, there are people that can help us that are subcontracted to me or are already available at this agency to help us make that happen. So we have a good potential team in place. And back to the recycled water, we just got to develop and implement, get the goals. The golf course is potential user. One thing that I don't know if Sam's done, honestly, this is something that came to my mind and I just wanted to bring it up, is I don't know how much we've worked with the environmental groups, nature groups, the homeowners, people that are going to be affected in any way by recycled water. It's always good to get them on board early. You know, anything from the bird watching group that board member Dye is a member of. I mean, people are affected by these in different ways, and when you go to them early and get them involved early, they tend to join your team rather than fight your team. So it just works well. So, and obviously need to work with the local water distribution agency and the regulatory agencies to make sure we're getting to where we need to be. But the next drought's coming, so we want to get it. Don't know when, but it will be here. And we need to be ahead of that curve. So, for a timeline, there's no specific reports or deadlines associated. If we move forward, there's a lot of moving parts, multiple goals that are all interactive and intertwined with each other. So I would propose that I provide you a monthly report that summarizes what was done in the last month and what is coming up in the next month or 3. Try to give you a picture of where we're going. Financial, definitely the priority. We've got to get it straightened around. I think there's everybody that's familiar with it knows what needs to be done there. We just need to tie that down. The process control management plan will work well with them to give them the step-by-step processes of what they need to do, and to work together and strengthen that team so that they feel like they're in it together to make this happen. I expect it's going to take us 28 months of full-time effort to make this happen. I've spent quite a bit of time going through that and trying to figure out where to spend hours and how to do it. And I got a breakdown. I think it's the next page that gets into that a little bit. But it's definitely a big project, but it is definitely something that will make this a much better organization and a much smoother running organization. So, rough hours, the finance department assessment interaction, getting them working, about 700 hours, PCMP 2,800, succession plan 320, helping with the JPA. I am not an attorney. An attorney team is going to have to actually write that piece of work, but I can definitely help with it. Consultation support of the CIP and recycled water, about 500 hours, and general management recruitment, about 60 hours, and a total of 4,650 hours, which if you break that down is to approximately 28 months of work, allowing for a little bit of vacation time in there. So everybody, the bottom line is, what is this? So dollar-wise, it's a big chunk. The 667 hours of my time. Subcontractors, I'm estimating about 25 hours a month, but that's gonna vary. There's gonna be some months with 0 and some months with 100, and it's going to vary, and that would only be estimated or billed only as it was actually used. But a total cost over 28 months of a little over $1.4 million, plus the analysis by others that we have to, for the compensation. And with that, I'll entertain any questions.
So I have a question about the estimated cost for doing this,
Okay.
PCMP. So does that take, so you're limited to about 960 hours a year?
No. Because of my consulting role, I'm not. If I was an employee, I would. Yes.
I see that a very immediate need is the bullet point that says will provide defined roles for involvement, responsibilities, and decision-making authority between SAM and member agencies. That is a really critical piece, and my question is, does that need to take 2 years?
Which page is that?
It's the process
Okay,
control
number-
management program page, and it's like the next to the last bullet. But I feel like that's a really important piece that kind of a lot of other things hinge on, and that we need to focus on that for a lot of reasons fairly quickly. We can't wait, this one, right here.
Yep.
We can't wait 2 years to resolve that.
No, I agree 100%.
I wonder how you see that playing into this in terms of timing.
We will start on that day one, but to see a total change is going to take time. That's where I'm trying to talk and be very open that this is not something that you can walk in and say, okay, everybody, starting today, you're going to be involved, responsible, and people just don't react that way. I think at the SAM level, we're gonna have to do that to an extent, and I think everyone in this room wants to do that. But to bring everybody together, they're gonna have to see some change happen. They should be aware of what we're doing, and they need to be a part of it. And I think there's gonna be ongoing, even if you read my Speed of Trust book and do everything, I think there's still going to be a lagging behind it, an embedded uncertainty. I don't wanna say mistrust on this one, but an uncertainty isn't real. And I think it takes time. It is definitely a top priority, but it forms by bringing these people together and starting them working on this, in this program.
I'd like to comment on that.
Yeah.
I think that's important. I mean, I think it's a culture question. Culture takes longer to change. I think the most immediate thing is finances.
Well, I agree with that, but I'm also concerned about, the lawsuit and it seems to me that this is a key aspect of resolving that, and we'd all like to get that resolved. And so, yeah, I agree with you that finance is the immediate thing
It's
in terms
urgent.
of
Yeah.
consulting and so forth and making changes. But I also think, it's pretty important to,
Yeah.
it'd be very good for all of us if we could somehow
Mhm.
move beyond the lawsuit. And it seems to me this is one of the key pieces to resolve that, so.
Well,
That's where I'm coming
I
from.
think that's something we might want to discuss in closed session later, but that said, I agree that both are critical, but they can both be handled in parallel.
Oh, I agree completely with that,
And,
but.
Well, I do think the finance is a little more urgent. I mean, some
But
decisions are gonna have to be made fairly quickly, I
some
think.
of these things can be handled if the board takes leadership and gives direction to Keisha and Stacy, immediately. Certainly, there are many small steps to resolving each one of these, but, I think Dan hit the button, the fix button very well. It's the willingness and leadership of this board. And, along with the buy-in and trust of our member agency managers to trust what this board and Keisha and, Kim and Carl decide on. I think that it's critical, the trust part is, the biggest hurdle we've got. And the culture is also a big one with the revolving door of managers that we've had. Process, policies, and trust have all fallen apart as people keep trying to fix their little bit. So
I'm looking for process.
I suggest that we look closely at what Dan has presented and perhaps the finance committee can meet again with Stacy, find out the specific baby steps that are needed for this, and then bring it back to the board to authorize it.
That's a meeting I think that Dan should be in.
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Dan and Keishan and Stacy and, the finance committee, or we can have it as a whole board and have a special agenda item, because certainly the finances are critical. But the trust part has to happen at the same time. The micromanaging that has been going on, it has been, debilitating.
Micromanaging of any kind is debilitating.
That's what I'm saying, to this agency. And I believe we have the talent sitting right here at this board. We have the will sitting right here at this board. And we have the drive sitting right here at this board. I think we're a very special board in that regard. And we also are not afraid to air our differences, which is also very important. So I think we can do it, and we can do it in parallel, and, I think the sooner we get started, I was just thinking, looking at $1.5 million, averaging out, knowing how things work. Finding the space in the budget and taking it to our member agencies is going to be the critical part, and as Barbara said, well, Barbara didn't say it, but I'll rephrase her words. I would much rather spend the money on this fixing process for Sam than on a lawsuit.
Leaving that aside, I wanted to just talk about something else that I think is really key here, and that is, so we talked about the urgency of succession planning too. Some people are gonna be retiring, so we talked about loss of institutional knowledge, and we talked about, people leaving and the issue of succession planning. And to me, that says that, getting at our policies and procedures and our standards are critical, because we're not gonna, survive that transition without also building the policy and procedure framework. One of the things we do now that I've noticed over the years is that, we're doing a lot of things based on, past practices. This is how we do it, this is how we've done it, nothing's written down, everything's sort of understood. And I think we need to get beyond that if we're gonna be a more professional organization that's smarter about our finances and can build trust. If everybody's sharing the same information about how we're gonna do things and what our values are and what our mission is, then, we're gonna move forward together. But, so I think you've described that very well, and I see it as the succession issue is also serious.
As I said at the start, all 10 of those items are intertwined, and I could have broken it down into a lot more of them, but it would have got to be a ridiculous list.
Yeah.
But yes, they are all very important, and as Commissioner Slater-Carter stated, the sooner you get started on it, the faster they get fixed, and it just needs to. I'm gonna second one other thing you said to it. That needs to get started, but the other thing is I do see U6 as an extraordinary board in a way that, after speaking with you, there is a desire at this level to fix things. And I think with open communications, listening, and some compromise, you can fix all things. I haven't been asked to get into lawsuit, and I have no desire to, but I think you can fix that through those same principles.
One of the things that I think is gonna be important if we're talking about succession planning is employee compensation. How do we attract new people to fill these
Yeah.
positions if our employee compensation is not well thought through and adequate? And so that's money. That's, the bottom line is it's money, but, you know, I think we have to spend it. And the other thing that I was interested in what you talked about was second in command. You know, having the ability for anybody who's working here to be able to leave on a vacation and know that somebody is trained in that position and can take over for a short time. And that's something that, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of that going on, but I don't, it sounds like you
It
find
happens,
there's
but
a deficit of that.
There's also a deficit,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, I was involved in a previous city and there was a compensation study every, I forget if it was 3 years or 5 years or whatever it was, but it was a key part of what they did to make sure they were paying the right amount. And you really, it's pretty hard internally to decide what the right numbers are.
that's right.
So I completely support that.
Most
I believe in
agencies,
bringing in
most agencies
experts.
tie it to their MOU
I think we
negotiations,
have
that kind of
a
stuff.
recent one, I'll go look for it.
Well,
Because we
was
did
it-
one when we did one for the right before last time's negotiations.
I thought there was a staffing study.
No, there's also an analysis of compensation.
Compensation.
I don't remember seeing that. I remember seeing the staffing one.
I don't
I'll look
remember.
for it.
Yeah, I think there was a compensation one, now that
I'll
you're
go-
talking about it, yeah.
I'll
Be
go
good to
look.
see that.
It might have been
Yeah.
before my time.
Yeah,
No,
that
no,
was-
I don't know when it was
needed
done,
update.
I've seen,
Yeah.
people have called me about it, so
I think I
they're-
think it was pretty quickly after Beverly came on, I think
Yeah.
it was 2016 sometime, or 2017.
One that looks at total excuse me again, one
Total,
that looks at total compensation is critical too, because just looking at wages does not give you a whole picture.
But
I mean,
and
healthcare-
that might be what this one looks at, is just wages,
Yeah,
not necessarily total competence, how we had it structured, when you go out for a bid like that.
so I kinda think we need to have this discussion with our own boards as well. I don't know how you feel about coming and
Tell me when to be there,
council meeting and just
I love,
doing
I
a
love to talk to
presentation,
boards.
because if we're gonna get, you know, buy-in from our boards for, you know, the financing
Sure.
of this, I think we need to have that conversation soon. So,
more than happy.
no, Bob's here.
Hey, you didn't give me that, so I didn't do it.
well, this is incredibly thorough what you've done. It's
Amazing.
too thorough, really, to get
Sorry.
it. I'm glad it's written down someplace where I can actually refer to it.
Yeah.
There's a lot there.
There is a lot, and we will get you all of the comments. And one thing, I put a big disclaimer on all the comments, that you've gotta remember, these are people's perceptions and ideas and thoughts. They're not necessarily always real, but in their minds they're real, because that's the way they see it. So we have to address it, whether telling them, no, this isn't the real thing, or fixing whatever we find to be true. But and the second thing I'll add to them is, good luck if you're trying to guess who said what, because I can guarantee you, unless you said it and know you said it, there's no way you'll guess, because there's a lot of things in there that came out of people's mouths that I would have never expected to come from that source. That, you know, somebody that was theoretically on this side said something that was totally opposite of what you would have thought, and vice versa. And it was just amazing, the overall sense of needing to do something, and seeing that, and seeing, and a lot of times seeing both sides of it, which is really a benefit and a strength going forward.
How do you envision getting the audits done by the end of this calendar year? What will you recommend happening?
But I haven't really talked to Stacy about that detail of it, but
I don't actually, so in terms of getting the audit done, I think that the 120 days is not realistic, because I can't even have the auditors come in till February for 18-19.
okay,
So I
stand
mean,
corrected, that was,
I've been trying to get on their calendar for next year to plan the audit, so I think it's February is what we're looking at.
So would we change it to 180 days?
But it's, they, once we finish our current audit, then we'd just start working on the next one.
180
We're kind of,
days is before they can start the next audit.
yeah. There's some rules that they have to have finished our audit for a certain number of days before we can redo our next audit. So that's part of.
And these are the only auditors we wanna use?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I have that question.
So the
Good discussion for the finance committee.
I think that that's a better discussion for the finance committee. I also think it's really hard to go out right now and to find an auditor for next year.
But we need some continuity as well.
Yeah, you're kinda in this, we have to go out anyway in 2021, so it would be better served us, I think, if we went out at that point, cause we're required to, so I'll bring that RFP to the finance committee when we have to go out.
Most of the findings on the 17-18 are not going to be addressed in the 18-19.
They might be, because most of the findings on the 17-18 are gonna be the same as the findings on the 16-17.
Okay, so they
Which
go
is
back
just
3
coming
audits. So,
Yeah,
uh,
which came through last fall.
But I think Stacy will agree, and I think all of you will agree, getting that audit done as soon as
Yes.
possible is absolute. I mean,
I'd like to add that under leadership, I like your comment, past is past. I think we should have a little sign in front of each of us. Past is past, move forward on, and build. Based on the needs of, as you were saying, the member agencies. But on the, business model of, not using that literally, but as Sam, as a service provider who is independent and, perfectly capable and can be trusted to get done what needs to be done
that's where we
without
need to get.
micromanagement. And,
That's where we need to get you.
I look forward to working with this board. I'm really excited. I think we have an opportunity. And,
Let's not forget the agencies are the customers.
the
That's a good
agencies,
point too.
the agencies are the customers, so that's, and yes, I look forward to having you come and visit MWSD. Our next meeting, is September 5th. And I see my manager, I see Clemens standing back there going, stop that! But, I think it would be useful for our board to hear that this can be fixed. I know the council and both boards are very anxious to get it fixed, so,
If I can be on the agenda on the 5th, yes.
I'm curious to know a little more about the process control management program. Can you
Okay.
provide us with a little, I don't need it now, can you provide us with a little more background of how this 2-year process would work?
Sure.
Maybe even a sample in the future?
Yeah.
I can, yes. I can send you one that I just recently
I
completed.
understand these things take time, but I also feel the urgency of getting a lot of things, you know, and it's a new, you're right, it's a new day, it's a new board, we're all eager to move forward. I find it a little daunting to think it's gonna take us 2 years. Hopefully we can make some serious progress in the immediate future. I mean, that's, you know,
You will, you
we'll
will
be on
see.
a, well, hopefully
you
we'll be
will
on a
see
big
major
wave and then we'll be
changes.
tidying up at the end of the 2 years.
But it is it's a process, and it
Yes.
does take time,
The human factor.
yeah, it just takes time to get everything addressed. We will move on it, but we can,
I have trust.
we can make it happen, thank you. Thank you. I'm way over my 15 minutes.
Well, this is really important.
Yeah, it's very important.
The most important.
Thank
Yep.
you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
And if you want me at city council, the only last thing is, I gotta remind you, for my 40th wedding anniversary, I'm out of the country from September 18th through October 5th, so taking my wife to Europe, or actually she's taking me, so
congratulations.
thank you very much.
If you can stay married for 40 years, you can solve the problems at hand.
I don't know if if they're related or not, but I'll take that as a compliment, thank you.
We're gonna take a 3-minute break.
Oh, thank you.
4C, review and approve the design documents for Granada Force Main Segment 4.
Move approval.
Yes,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
thank you.
How's that?
That was a record.
That was Director Guy, Director Ruddick, correct?
Yes.
Motion second, thank you.
4D, review the SAM budget process and timeline.
I suggest we postpone that since we're running close to
Well,
9.
I think we have a revision, I met with Kitchen.
You have a revision, I left a revision on your desk. After discussion with Director Dye in the morning, we just added
And based on the comments from the
managers.
agency managers, we added, the council board, we added, an opportunity for the agency managers and engineers to consult with their boards, and we added a face-to-face meeting with the agency managers, to go over the CIP. We revised.
Where are these?
Right at the beginning.
Right at
October
the beginning.
14th, and where is the
The
It's,
other one is,
it's the date of 9/26 and
9/26?
And that's a
Okay.
scheduled
and 10/14.
it's already scheduled, so we like firmed up, one of the comments from the agency managers was that they didn't feel that it was enough. We have a lot of spelled out back and forth toward the end, and at the beginning, the CIP process didn't involve them enough, so we added these two, and we took off the strategic plan bullet point, cause that's kind of more general stuff. So this, I think this is helpful, I think it's still gonna need more tweaking, but I think we're getting to a point where, even though it's a lot of different colors with different blocks, it does, you know, create an opportunity for the agency managers and the agency boards to have their input, and SAM still to approve the CIP and the budget, so I think it's better.
Mm-hmm. Deborah, we might want this on the next city council agenda, just to review.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think this looks great and it's a living document, so I think over the years it will get refined, and I think that's good.
Mhm.
And thank you, Barbara.
Well, a lot of people worked on this, it came out of the finance committee, but I did, you know, and based on the 3 emails that we got from the agency managers, it seemed like, oh yeah, we needed to just,
Thanks.
yes, so should we do one approval of this?
Do we need approval?
I mean, I do.
Just says review.
Just to review,
Okay,
we have any going ahead with the timeline, everything is acceptable to the member agency managers, so
everybody
just
thinks,
moving forward.
anybody have any problems with it?
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, moving on to 4E. Confirm cancellation of October 14, November 11, and December 23 regular board meetings.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Review and discuss costs of changing medical insurance from OE3 to CalPERS.
Okay,
Quick
one-
question, does it save us money?
No, it doesn't cost us money either.
Yeah, let me just brief you, just a little more, elaborate on the staff report that was provided. There is no financial impact on switching to CalPERS for the medical insurance. The authority actually pays a maximum of $18.19 per employee as per the MOU. This is for the medical insurance. Now, when we propose to move out from OE3 and go to CalPERS, CalPERS does not provide vision and dental. And therefore, vision and dental is something which we are shopping around, we'll bring it back to the board at a later date. But the vision and dental are being paid completely by the authority with no cost to the employee. So we do not have the details,
No contribution from the employee.
no contribution from the employee.
And that's in the MOU.
Yeah, that's as per the employee, MOU. So we do not have the cost right now for the vision and dental, but we'll bring it back to the board at a later date.
but wait,
And
right now, it's a maximum amount for health insurance, vision and dental,
no, just health insurance.
just the health insurance, okay.
The vision and dental
And then we
is,
pay for that separately.
yes, and that's completely paid for by the employer. And OE3 has vision and dental included in it. They provide it. They provide health, medical
So it
insurance.
is within, or, so our people have to pay extra for vision and dental, or it's included in that maximum amount
Maybe
our
Stacy.
employees?
Okay, so the reason you're all confused is because on July 1, 2019, the Local 39 contract changed. And so in the Local 39 contractual change, the amount of money per month went from $19.55 that included medical, dental, and vision for all staff down to $18.19 and medical only. And that was what was put in that contract that I all I can do is read contractual language at this point. And so because of that, I think that's where the confusion is coming from. And so when we made the change to the MOU, part of that in the new MOU, it says that Sam will provide vision and dental at no cost. And it doesn't matter if a full family, whatever.
So we're contracted to provide that,
Yes.
so, and the cost for the health insurance is not gonna change.
The cost for the health insurance is gonna go up by an escalator of like $2 to $3 a year. It's a very low escalator that we.
But changing the provider's not gonna make any
No.
difference.
Changing provider is, if there is any amount above 1819, that's on the staff.
Okay. Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. General Manager's report.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Attorney's report.
To be very quick, the California Supreme Court came out with a very favorable inverse condemnation decision on sewer backflows that I will tell you about more fully at another time.
Okay, thank you. Director's report. Topics for future board consideration.
Nope.
Public comment at this time.
Oh, topics for future board consideration,
Yes.
I clearly, we need to, keep, Dan on board,
Yes.
and so, if not physically, at least with a report from Keisha. And I'd like that as an item on every agenda,
One of the things that he said was that he'd give us monthly reports.
right?
But wasn't that
Yes.
something you said, Dan?
That's a part of the.
So it should be maybe on the second meeting of the month when we don't have all the consent agenda stuff.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Does that work for you, Dan?
Yes.
Okay.
Except in October, November, and December, October and November, you will only have the first meeting.
Yes.
That's
True.
true.
So-
In September, I'll actually be gone.
Gone.
Right.
So maybe it should be the first meeting in October and November, and then the.
And the first meeting in
Well, it'll be the
September.
only meeting in
The only,
October,
when it's,
November,
when it's the
December.
only meeting, it's at the only
Right.
meeting.
And-
Right.
And we'll send it out with the agenda packet so that you have it in advance, you can ask questions and talk
Excellent.
about it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no public comment, and we will convene in closed session. I'm closing